So, Railjack and Warframe just got a complete overhaul. Part 1 of that overhaul went live yesterday, with Part 2 to be rolled out later on. But just how much has changed with these space battles after last weekend's community test cluster, where players got to jump in, play it and then give feedback? The answer is a huge amount of changes have been added, with some of them directly taken from that test cluster feedback, so it does seem to be working. So let's jump right in and see what the changes are. Railjacks now move at double the speed that they had before, but at the cost of your boost speed, which is now seen a 75% nerf, which does sound bloody bad, a 75% nerf, but in all honesty it's actually not that bad. It feels much better in fact when you get into combat. And now there is also a new avionic that you can get to boost your ship's speed by another 80% as well, if you can get your hands on it. Now before these changes you would use that boost, then you would have to wait for cooldown, then you would use boost again to get across the map, and then you would have to wait for cooldown, whereas now you're moving twice as fast as you were and you're basically zipping across the map, and the missions feel a hell of a lot faster than they did before. The loot pickup range for your Railjack ship's vacuum has been doubled as well, which was really needed. Being out in a big open space and having to fly right on top of the drops made the missions feel very slow and took way too long for you to get the mission done before you could then jump back into another mission again. So it made them, in all honesty, it made them bloody boring. So now that vacuum is double the size it was before. They've also tripled the drop values of titanium, which I know is one of the rarer drops that a lot of you wanted to get your hands on, and I wanted to get my hands on in order to craft items. Grineer enemies inside ships can now drop Arcwing mods, and captains can also drop the dual stat mods and operation mods as well. So the captains have got those rarer drops if you want to farm them. Your Railjack is now also more powerful because enemy ships and enemies inside some of those ships have had their health and armor values greatly reduced. So missions move a lot faster because of this, and your weapons feel a lot more powerful because of it as well. The majority of weapons and of course your avionic abilities, your battle avionics at least, for your Railjack have also seen some kind of a buff, with the heat buildup of weapons being reduced to stop you overheating as much, so it gives you a longer sustained DPS on ships. The pulsar weapon types have also been given damage buffs for each family. The Lava and the Vidar and of course the Zekti pulsar have all seen buffs. They have quadrupled the experience gained from putting out hazards on your ships, like the fire hazards and those, which means faster intrinsic gains. The only real problem for your Railjack was the cruise ships when you are fighting the enemies, which have had some changes as well. If you destroy the engines on the back of a ship, those three kind of thrusters, it will disable that ship, it will disable all of their guns, and it will kill half of the enemies on that ship as well. However, there is also now elite cruise ships that have shields around them, which require you to destroy the 3 generators on the outside of the ship before you can board it. So there is a little bit of variety with enemy cruise ships. Now the new Railjack Valence System, a lot like the Kuva Valence System where you merge weapons together, now allows us to upgrade our ship's weapons and parts to a set cap percentage. 60% seems to be the cap for the bonus weapon stats like fire rate and damage. So you can't go too high with that bonus stat. But in order to do the Valence transfer, you will need to have 2 fully crafted parts of the same type in order to use it. So whether it's the same type of Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3 weapons of that name, whether it's the Carsonox or the Cryofon or something like that, or you can use an unbuilt wreckage part of a similar item at a reduced crafting cost, 40%. So basically if you have 2 Zekti Carsonox but only one is fully built and the other one needs to be fully repaired, then if you want you can Valence the unbuilt one, but it will be at a reduced cost of actually building it. So you will still need some materials to get that 40% repair cost. It's cheaper than fully repairing something and then going and trying to Valence it basically. So you're going to want to use an unbuilt one basically, so it doesn't cost you as much resources. Avionics have been completely simplified down and they've been probably removed from your Railjack as well and probably unleveled, so you'll need to equip them all and level them all as well. Before we had 3 different houses or manufacturers of different variations of the same avionic. Like say you had the bulkhead, so we had Vidar bulkhead, Zekti bulkhead, and of course the Lavan bulkhead, whereas now there is only one family type for that item or that avionic. So it's less convoluted, you have less stuff to look at on the screen, and you're not trying to figure out which one of these should you use. There is only one there for you to look at. Avionics take up less capacity as well, which means you can fit more items into your Railjack's build. The battle avionics, like I have said earlier, also seen some pretty big changes. Everything seems to have gotten a buff with the exception of Void Hole, which now lasts half the duration it did before and also has less of a suck, so it won't pull in as many enemies from the furthest point of where that Void Hole kind of activated. But Seeker Volley looks like it might be the new Void Hole, the kind of go-to battle avionic. Its damage has been buffed right up. It's been given double the crit chance it had before. It's got more than double the rocket speed as well. So my current Railjack setup for battle avionics is Shadow Burst and of course Seeker Volley. I've dropped out Void Hole. Now Arcwing melee weapons have also been given some pretty big buffs as well, which is direct kind of feedback from the test cluster, so it's good to see again that it's working. Mastery rank changes for most of them, base damage changes as well, increases to base damage, crit chance changes as well, so Arcwing melee is going to be in a much better spot than it was before, if you ever used it. Me personally, I didn't. But the most interesting Arcwing change for me is the Velocitus, the kind of sniper variant of the arc gun, which has seen a huge base damage increase, crit chance increase, and a huge increase to the charged shots damage as well. So I would imagine it is a bit of a beast right now, but I will try to level it up and get a few more form on it to see just how good it is. Now there are other changes which I haven't really mentioned for the sake of keeping this video as short as possible. There is a link to the patch notes in this video's description. Like I said, this is part 1 and it was all about the pacing of those Railjack missions and kind of fixing that, where we can now get intrinsics much faster. The ships feel more powerful and faster as well, not just an oversized space taxi. They also have better feel to the combat. Titanium is acquired better than it was before. The enemy amounts are randomized. Enemy ships can be taken down that little bit easier. The cruise ships have more variation to them. The missions overall just feel much better, but I'm sure it could still do with a lot more improvements. At the end of the day, I know a lot of you don't like space combat in games and you play Warframe for the main portion of the game like I do, which I guess is run and gun with powerful Warframes and weapons. So for you, the problem with Railjack is that I guess it's Railjack. It feels like a completely different game. It's still not connected to the main game in any real way, and hopefully the new war will continue or eventually combine all of these islands we have in Warframe to the Railjack thing as well, to kind of make it feel like more of an actual universe and not just different game modes. But share your thoughts below, like the video or don't, subscribe or don't, and as always, thanks very much for watching.